Lovely, thank you very much, Mark. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Gwent Police and Crime Panel on Friday the 18th of February 2022. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting. The meeting has been reverted to online due to the red weather warning. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting and we will start with some introductions. My name is Jill Howells. I'm the independent member and chair of the panel. If we could work down the membership as per the public document pack that we've got. So if members who are on here could start from the top, please. So Councillor John Killick.
Yeah, John Killick's all fine.
Councillor Gwyn Jenkins.
We have apologies from Gwyn Jenkins, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't see everybody on the thing. So if I just work through. Councillor Clyde Meredith.
Yes, sure. Plain of Gwent.
Thank you. Councillor Lisa Winnett.
You, Chair. Plain of Gwent as well.
Councillor Christine Forehead.
She's not on the call, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Mann.
Here, Chair. Caerphilly County Barrow Vice Chair.
Councillor Sean Morgan.
Yeah, Councillor Sean Morgan, Caerphilly County Borough Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Easton.
Morning all, yes, present for Monmouthshire.
Councillor Fairweather.
We have apologies for Councillor Fairweather.
Thank you. Councillor Jason Jordan.
He's due to attend, Chair, but he's not on the call yet.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Spencer.
Same, he's due to attend, but he's not on the call yet.
And by invitation, we have the Commissioner, Mr. Jeff Cuthbert.
Yes, present.
Do we have Deputy Commissioner?
Peter Nuttall as well, Chair.
Oh, sorry. I
Yeah.
skipped.
Oh,
Sorry, Peter Nuttall.
Thank you for forgetting me, but
Apologies, Peter. I would never do that.
still a co-opted member.
Thank you, Peter. Sorry, Deputy Commissioner Larry Thomas.
We have apologies from Larry, Chair.
Thank you. Sean Curley, Officer of Gwent Police and Crime Commissioner.
Good morning, Sean Curley, Chief Executive, Police and Crime Commissioner's Office.
Thank you. Darren Garwood-Pask.
Morning all, present. Darren Garwood, Chief Finance Officer at the Commissioner.
And do we have any other representatives of the Office of the PCC? No. And from Gwent Police, I believe we have DCC Amanda Blakeman.
Good morning all, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other officers from Gwent Police on the call? No, lovely. Thank you all very much. Are there any declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda today? No? Okay, thank you. Apologies for absence, Kath. You've already noted a couple. Should we just reconfirm those?
Yeah, it's Councillor Fairweather and Councillor Gwyn Jenkins. We may have one or two more because of the weather. People may have difficulty connecting, but I will advise them on the minutes if that's the case.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Kath. So moving on to the item on the agenda today then, item agenda number 3, report on the Police and Crime Commissioner for Gwent's revised council tax precept proposal for 2022-23. I'd like to hand over to the Commissioner, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. And I would like to start with a sincere thank you to panel members for the valued challenge, scrutiny and outcome from this year's budget round. As I said at the conclusion of the debate at our January meeting, I am seldom lost for words, and Darren, of course, is never lost for words. It was clear throughout the budget setting process and at the meeting itself that panel members recognised acutely the difficult balance that needed to be achieved from the financial impact on the residents of Gwent from any council tax precept increase with the needs of Gwent Police to maintain current levels of service and to grow the PCSO establishment. Importantly, on this point, the panel was clear on their support of the work of Gwent Police and recognised the ongoing pressures on the Chief Constable and her staff to deliver that service. The value to communities that the safety and assurance offered by Gwent Police cannot be quantified in monetary terms, and the effect on the less well off by any increase in the council tax precept. However, the panel was equally mindful that a budget that is not balanced remains as such in perpetuity, and the effects of crime can manifest in a worse way against those same people. Now, turning to the report presented today, I'd like to draw out some key points. In coming to your veto conclusion, to raise my council tax precept proposal from 5% to 5.5%, you noted a number of factors which I took into account when reducing my original planned council tax precept increase down from 6.82% to the actual council tax precept proposal increase of 5% as submitted to you at our January meeting. I'll discuss those factors shortly with regard to my ability to accept your veto recommendation. However, before I do, I'd like to pick up one other point you highlighted in drawing to your veto conclusion. You raised concerns regarding the cost of borrowing in relation to the planned capital programme, particularly the cost of implementing the estate strategy. In response, I assured you that a review of the estate strategy would be undertaken at the commencement of the 2022-23 financial year. Now, the terms of reference have now been drafted for this review and are currently being finalised with the force. Therefore, the review will commence before the start of the 22-23 financial year and will plan to conclude at the end of June with the launch of a revised estate strategy and associated capital programme. This review will be undertaken in collaboration with your estate's reference group and other key stakeholders in order to realign operational policing and the public's requirements, incorporating both the principles of value for money and environmental sustainability with an appropriately risk-based approach to funding. I'd now like to turn to the factors I considered when reducing my original council tax precept increase down from 6.82% to 5%, and why, through revisiting these factors, I was able to agree your veto recommendation of raising my council tax precept proposal up to 5.5%. Paragraph 7 in your report today provides the detailed narrative, but in summary, you recognise that the central government grant funding for the police officer uplift programme in the short term provides a non-recurrent revenue contribution to capital to fund both short-term and long-term assets, but does not remedy the need for sustainable funding for the capital programme. Therefore, a higher council tax precept than proposed would better provide sustainable capital funding, whilst acknowledging, however, the forthcoming review of my estate strategy. You recognise the council tax precept capping principles in Wales are different to counterparts in England, by Welsh Government recognising the total value that policing brings to Wales as a whole. Although not achieving an overall clear 50% support rate in our precept public engagement exercise, you acknowledged that the largest percentage of respondents supported a £2 per month increase, noting that my initial 5% council tax precept proposal increase amounted to only a £1.20 per month increase. Now, in reducing my council tax precept proposal to 5%, I recognise through early engagement with the panel's finance reference group and my own reflections the public's viewpoint. Although they are extremely supportive of Gwent Police, the stark reality of the economic factors beyond policing, such as unprecedented rises in utility costs and inflation growth on fuel and more general commodities, places a potential unaffordable ask at the feet of Gwent council tax precept payers. However, as mostly elected members, you recognise the need to strike the right balance between supporting your constituents and the wider population of Gwent, with supporting me in delivering an efficient and effective policing service along with the Chief Constable to those same people. So in conclusion, I accept your veto recommendations of an increase of 5.5%, which will result in me issuing a revised council tax precept of £68,144,822 for 22-23, equivalent to a council tax band D payment of £303.80, reflecting an increase of 5.5% or £15.84 per annum. Importantly, this additional council tax precept income reduces the 22-23 budgetary deficit from 2.5 million to 2.2 million and the 26-27 forecast budget deficit down from 9.8 million to 9.3 million. This therefore reduces the need for Gwent Police to identify further recurrent cashable savings through the life of the medium-term financial plan, to the backdrop of already realising nearly £53 million of cashable efficiency saving since 2008-2009. I am aware that the force's senior leaders met on Tuesday of this week to begin identifying the opportunities for addressing the recurrent deficit. However, with the vast majority of budgets ring-fenced for police officers and PCSOs, this will be a challenging ask. As highlighted in my report, due to the uncertainty of future funding and the financial challenges within the current financial plan to 26-27, my Chief Finance Officer will maintain consistent and ongoing dialogue with the panel's Finance Reference Group to ensure future risks and opportunities are considered and acted upon in a timely manner, particularly future council tax precept increases, which are currently forecast at 6.82% per annum within the financial plan. I therefore maintain my commitment to robust financial monitoring and continued investment in frontline policing services. Furthermore, as mentioned earlier, the panel's estate reference group will be actively engaged from the outset in the review of my estate strategy. We are happy to take any outstanding questions you may have, whilst we recognise, of course, that there was a full discussion and debate at our meeting last month. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any questions or comments in relation to the report? I can't see any hands up at the moment.
My hands up, Chair.
Oh, sorry, I'll just flick in. Right, Councillor Eason.
Yes. Good morning, all. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
When we discussed this issue at two or 3 weeks ago, I wasn't aware that there might be an informal 5% cap from the Welsh Government. We came to a decision to veto your 5%. What were the real questions that the Welsh Government officials had towards us vetoing your 5%, based on the fact that there was an informal cap in referendum limit of 5%? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That 5% has been their, shall we say, guiding view for some time. And I know that Darren, as CFO, has had discussions with the Welsh Government officials so that they are aware of the situation regarding 5.5%. Darren, maybe you can summarise those discussions.
Yes, certainly, Commissioner. It's as you said. So the guiding principle that beyond 5%, the Welsh Government have the powers to cap, which is outlined in the report that was submitted in January the 28th, in terms of both their avenues of capping. Its guiding principles, they need to scrutinise the expenditure requirements, essentially, which has driven up that need, whether it is appropriate and vindicate in terms of the pressure that are faced. So we maintain ongoing dialogue throughout the year with Welsh Government through the Welsh Police Financial Resources Group, and I have contact in with the lead in that area. I had discussions with her prior to the setting the budget and post setting the budget, and Welsh Government were comfortable around the necessary increase up beyond the 5%. And you'll acknowledge that Welsh commissioners over many years have been well in excess of 5%. Peaking at about 7% in some cases, not for our force, you'll appreciate, but it's more about a flag and a conversation piece that follows that part, if that helps, Councillor Eason.
Yeah, and importantly, we are not required to hold a referendum, which they would do in England.
Right, okay, thank you, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Eason. Councillor Killick?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, it took a long time to mute, or to unmute, more to the point. Yeah, I'd like some assurance, please. Darren's often used the comment that once it's lost, it's lost. And I have to say, I've used that argument myself on many occasions, so I fully agree with what he's saying there. But could I have some assurance from the Commissioner, please, that in future years, this 300,000 that we have saved here should there be ever any move to cut policing on the streets, that it will be remembered that this additional money is there and is there in perpetuity, and therefore would be used in those future years to ensure that we don't have any, that it mitigates as far as possible against any cutbacks, and if possible to increase.
Thank you very much for that question. Let me give you an assurance. It remains both my policy and that of the Chief Constables that we will not be cutting frontline resources. In fact, the whole purpose of this budget, which I trust is clear, is to make sure that in terms of neighbourhood policing, certainly that we will continue to build. And of course, we will be supported by the UK government's uplift programme in this regard. And we have the plans in place as well to recruit more PCSOs, which are a very, very valuable resource. And in this, of course, the Welsh government supports us on a voluntary basis by paying for 700 now, 600, I beg your pardon, across Wales, with our share being in the order of 120, 121, plus our own paid for PCSOs. So whilst I'm loath to give absolute guarantees about what the future may hold, certainly it is our intention to maintain police officer numbers. And that's what we've done since 2016, when the then Chief Constable and I made a decision that we would focus as much resources as we could on building up policing numbers, which had dropped to an alarmingly low rate. By the way, you can't lay off police officers. The issue is not replacing them when they retire or leave. But certainly, I hope I've been as clear as I can on that. Is there anything you want to add, Darren?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. You know, it's a very, very good question, and I'll just build upon what the Commissioner has said. Pre-op uplift, we had to provide to the Home Office a baseline police officer establishment. Quite logically, the Home Office wanted to see their clear additionality. And as such, we are not allowed to go beyond that baseline. Our baseline was 1,300 police officers prior to the police uplift programme. And as the Commissioner's already said, if you go back to 2016, we were at 1,150. So through Precept, prior to op uplift, we went from 1,150 to 1,300. Best part of 150, 160 officers went into the mix, funded through Precept. Before the government gave us the assurances of the extra 206 officers that would come to Gwent, we had to lock down our establishment at 1,300. So we are mandated by the Home Office not to drop below 1,506 officers by March 23, because that's their target, that's their assurance. We cannot move from that. And equally, from the PCSO side, we have a commitment with Welsh Government on top of the PCSOs they fund to maintain a PCSO establishment of about 196 PCSOs by 26-27. So that takes account of about 2/3 of our budget, those two lines, and we can't move from that. So you have the assurance that every penny that goes in will maintain that PCSO establishment and that police officer establishment. There is the slight sting in the tail that with future financial pressures, the pool of resources that the Chief Constable, through the Deputy Chief Constable who's here today, who runs the Service Improvement Board, there's a smaller pool of budgets to look for those savings. But you'll appreciate the vast majority is locked down, ring fence. We can't go there. So the £300,000 investment which you've talked about absolutely maintains that policing function, those numbers, and importantly mitigates the savings that we need to find in other areas that could undermine the ability of those officers to be efficient and effective. Because that's the danger, isn't it, in this mix, is you have all the officers that you can't move on the establishment, yet the infrastructure that supports them could be shrinking to a point that actually they become inefficient and ineffective, and that's the fine balance. But absolute assurance we can't move from that establishment. So that investment that you approved at the last meeting is exceptionally welcomed by the force and the Commissioner's office.
Chair, it may be interesting, if you agree, to allow the DCC just to make a point. One of the issues is, of course, as we recruit new officers who tend to be younger, they require very detailed training these days, and rightly so, and especially with the new police education and qualification framework, to make sure that all the standards are there. And this does cause issues for policing. Maybe you'd if you agree, we could ask the DCC to make a comment on the matter of recruitment and police officers.
Yeah, please do.
Thank you very much, Shaw. So, so just to support the very clear explanation that Darren's given there in terms of that sort of, I suppose, the opportunity to make savings is very much diminished by, the police uplift programme and also the CSO agreements. I think, obviously we would want to make sure that our officers are out in our community, frontline, giving the response in terms of the community for the, very necessary emergencies, but also doing all of the work that we'd want to see around crime prevention, and also the intervention work that we'd want to see proactively. We have a very clear structure in place in force in terms of a goal group that runs around the police uplift programme that Darren sits on, and also our financial team. We are now, in a position across the country where we are making good progress, in comparison to other forces around how we are able to, sort of recruit. We've got a team that are doing a fantastic job in terms of making sure that we are meeting our objectives around getting those officers in. But clearly that means that a large proportion of our workforce are, quite young in service. And we are putting quite a lot of support in to make sure that they have the necessary skills to deal with what is now a very complex area, in terms of, society, in terms of, sort of legislation, and in terms of expectation. So we do a huge amount of work in terms of support, making sure that they are able to be efficient and effective in terms of their frontline delivery, to make sure that we give the very best to our victims of crime, that we make sure that we get those criminal justice outcomes that we want, and we make sure that we do that prevention work that is key to us. So, at this moment in time, very large percentage, very new in service, huge amount of support going into the, making sure that they are able to deliver. We're balancing that very, very well, but clearly making savings can only come from the area that supports them to be able to do that at this very critical time in their career. I hope that assists.
Thank you very much, all. Peter Nettle, question from you, please. Comment from you.
Just a comment. The Commissioner said that police officers couldn't be laid off. Well, tell that to all the sergeants we lost throughout the country when police forces were encouraged to get rid of the sergeants because they were costing more money. And as the Deputy just said, we're doing catch up now, because a lot of the police officers are young and have not got the experience that those sergeants had. A whole layer of police experience was taken out throughout the country in various levels, in various forces, but we're now in a catch-up situation. Thank you.
Could I just tell you, Chair, I'm experiencing some network problems.
Okay.
It's beginning to break up. I think I caught the gist of what Peter just said, and of course I understand, and it's the point made by the DCC that when you lose experience, you have to catch up. Absolutely, and I remember the issues that are being referred to there. But we are determined to do the very best that we can with our resources. And the last thing, as I said, when the then Chief Constable, which was Jeff Farrar, back in 2016, early 2017, we agreed we had to reverse the programme of reductions in the numbers of police officers and turn it round, which I think we've done to a reasonably successful degree.
Thank you. Any further comment on that, Peter? No, thank you. Councillor Mann, question from yourself?
Thank you, Chair. More of a comment than a question, to be honest. I note that the extra precept is going in to fill a budget gap rather than bring extra officers in, which is what I expected, to be honest. And we've already heard comments on whether or not it would future-proof any numbers of officers in the years to come. I was going to mention the WG guideline, but Tony's already mentioned that one. I welcome the Commissioner mentioning again the estate review, because I think that is very much needed. I don't think I'm alone in that particular thought. And again, I think the Commissioner mentioned the effect on council taxpayers, and I think we all know the immense pressure that council taxpayers are under with, well, with all the extra costs that are being thrown at people at the moment. I mean, I was given the story of somebody not too far from me, a family with 6 children, with virtually nothing in the cupboard, and until somebody called from the Fair Share organisation. So you know, it is out there and it's very close to us, if you know where to look, I suppose. But so we do have to bear that in mind always. But I think we are where certainly some of us expected to be, and really doesn't need any more comment. I will just finish by congratulating the Commissioner and his staff on their backgrounds. I think they're great.
Every little helps in these meetings, Colin.
Well, it's certainly an improvement on the previous one, Garen.
DCC Blakeman, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, I suppose I just wanted to make a bit of a link point, really, and we are very, very aware of how difficult and challenging it is for families across our communities. It is absolutely something that we talk about on a daily basis when we're making decisions about where money should go and what we should be putting, our focus into. What I would say is that we have actively, in terms of recruitment, looked to recruit from our local communities, and we've looked to make sure that we expand our opportunities to our local communities. So I know, for instance, the screens that you can see behind you are courtesy of an apprenticeship scheme that we have invested in, and we have actively gone to our local education providers and worked with our local education providers to ensure that we're recruiting from our communities across Gwent and into families that wouldn't necessarily be looking at a career in policing or thinking that was something that they could access. So our apprenticeship scheme, is very, very positive, and something that I really passionately believe we've got an absolute obligation to make sure that if we are taking from our communities, we are investing back in and we're giving those employment opportunities across the board. So our positive action team, our recruitment team, our opportunities for apprenticeships, and everything that we do in terms of recruitment is very much focused on Gwent first, and us being able to look at how we build that capability within our communities moving forward.
Can I just endorse that, Chair, very much? And you'd expect me to, as the former Deputy Minister for Skills at the Welsh Government, who introduced the Enhanced Apprenticeship Programme for Wales. I'm delighted to see the commitment that both Gwent Police and my office has for apprenticeship schemes. We mustn't forget policing staff, as well as policing officers. And these apprenticeships will give those additional skills and opportunities to young people, many of whom, not that they're restricted by age, but in the main they're younger people, many of whom may not have ever thought of policing or public service in general as a structured, trained opportunity for themselves. We're changing that now. And you're absolutely right, Amanda, the work that was done by our apprentice in our office on, she's an apprentice learning technical skills in communications, and she's first class, and she was the one who designed the backgrounds that Sian, Darren and I have at this moment, and she's going to do further work for our Youth Forum programme, which is coming up in a few weeks' time, and I attended a pre-meeting with that yesterday. But that's an example of some of the way we're trying to reach out to younger people.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that update. Councillor Eason, did you want to come in with a final point?
Yeah, just one final point. It's not mentioned in the report, but I'd like some assurance from Darren and the Commissioner regarding the estates strategy within the budget, around in the future. I know what we're talking about this morning, but can you link in your estate strategy in terms of the budget today and going on?
Yes, I thought, well, yes, we can, and perhaps Darren, you'd like to clarify that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we met in January, we started on the basis of linking revenue contribution to capital, funding short life assets, so ICT and fleet, so something with sort of a 3-year life, and then the wider borrowing piece into the longer term assets, the estate. So when you look at the totality of capital programme, the vast majority of the significant spend was around the estate programme, and quite rightly. And there was a long debate around the risk of borrowing, the significant borrowing, over £50 million up to 26-27, the recurrent impact on that, the risk around movement in interest rates, the reduction in the Commissioner's reserves and committed funds to fund that, the cessation of capital grant from government. So we were very much in a place of funding the entire capital programme of short life and long life assets through revenue. And when it comes through revenue, there's an impact on Precept. So what we gave you that assurance that we would be a foot on the ball moment around the estate strategy part of the capital programme, the lion's share of the funding. So the terms of reference have been written up. It's kind of 4 phases really. Phase 1 is we want to know where we are now. What are the drivers? What are the constraints around the current programme? What's changed from the existing strategy? Where do we want to go with that strategy? Significantly looking at the constraints, affordability issues, profiling issues, public need, operational need, the professional viewpoint for value for money and sustainability. Really looking at the objectives of the estate strategy, the primary, secondary. How do we know? So where we know where we are today, what we know the drivers are, what we know the constraints are, where do we want to be? How do we know we've got there? So have we met those objectives? And importantly, the 4th stage is, and how do we physically get there between the two? Do we need to borrow? Do we need to reprofile? Do we need to shrink and constrain? And the most important piece is bringing all those partners back around the table over the forthcoming weeks. So that's the estate reference group, the wider panel members, the wider electorate across or elected officials across Gwent, so MSs, MPs, other councillors, the stakeholders in the force, because they're facing threat, harm and risk every day from operational assets not being able to deliver what they need to. We talked about custody, we talked about firearms ranges, etc., etc. We talked about training provision, we talked about fleet, we talked about all those facets and really looking at that. And it's about bringing absolute clarity of purpose and transparency to that with panel members. So when we move, if we do progress into a borrowing position, and whatever that borrowing position will be, and whatever that final cost of that capital programme will be for the next 10 years, everybody on this call has the assurance it is being critically assessed and robustly scrutinised and challenged that is the right place to go. And that piece of work will be happening over the next 3.5 months. So we've got these terms of reference written up. We're going to work out the detail of who's doing what, how they're going to do it, and when they're going to do it. And we'll start getting those meetings in the diary in the next couple of weeks with the state reference group members primarily to help shape and bring to the fore the concerns that were raised at this year's budget setting round, that we absolutely have a glued together operational, public, professional, sustainable estate strategy that everybody's committed to and understands. And I hope that helps the Councillor Eason. But you have my assurance it will be clear and transparent and robust.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate the answer. I still feel a little bit confused as to how it all knits into the. I can see the budget there, where we got the 68 million. I just have to watch that space, I think, in the future.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just to touch on that piece, the amount of capital spend that goes through that 68 million is growing marginally, simply because the way we've historically funded the capital programme, through capital grant, through reserves and committed funds, through sale of premises, legacy premises, although we don't have any to sell, that's been depleted. Government grants gone. Reserves and committed funds are at the appropriate level for the outstanding commitments, very few of which are capital in nature. So there becomes more of a pressure into revenue, the revenue account, which is funded best part of 50% by Precept payers. So we need to be absolutely sure that the Precept element is going into a capital programme that is robust, transparent and clear.
Okay.
But I can provide more of a breakdown. It's a treasury management strategy that provides the element in Precept that funds capital, and I can pick that outside if you so wish.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Darren. And just to support Councillor Easton's view, I mean, I think it is something the estate strategy particularly caused the finance group and obviously the estate group some concerns this year. And, you know, I've had a chat with Councillor Mann as well and how we can link those two groups together, the finance groups, and maybe we'll look for representation from the finance group, from myself or Colin on there to try and cut across, because I think we've missed a gap there, but it certainly will be a focus for the panel.
That would be very welcome. One person on the finance reference group and the estate reference group who
try and
can
link
join
it together.
Definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely necessary.
A final comment from yourself, Councillor Mann, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's on the question of capital. Obviously, the amount of money that we're proposing to borrow in the coming years and the cost of paying that back is really, it worries me more because of the pressure on the revenue budget. And that, of course, puts pressure on the ability to pay for the officers and the staff that we need. So really, it is crucial, as far as I'm concerned, to manage that capital programme and make sure that it doesn't cost us any penny more than it has to in the future, because the cost of paying back is substantial.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So in bringing that agenda item, we've had the opportunity to discuss. Is there somebody who will move that report, please?
I'll move it, Chair, if you wish.
Thank you. Second?
I'll move second.
And if we could have a show of hands for those in favour, please. Lovely. Thank you very much. That was the agenda item for today's meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. We look forward to the new financial year and, you know, wish the force success in their operations. With regards to the red weather warning today, I hope everybody stays safe, take care, and particularly to the force officers who are out there supporting the public. We very much hope that they stay safe as well.
Chair, apologies if I've missed a message, but we were going to have another session after this one. I don't know whether that's still on or not. But
we're having a briefing session that follows the meeting.
We are, okay.
Yes,
thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
So do we just stay online? Yep.
Yeah, so we'll close the meeting and finish the recording of the meeting, and then we'll continue with our briefing session for those that are available to stay.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So sorry, Chair, I do apologise. I've just got into bed. Jet lag hit me this morning, so unfortunately I missed half of the meeting. So
no worries. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I'll bring the meeting to a conclusion then at 10:38 and thank everybody for their attendance. So for those that are staying for the briefing session, if you stay online, and Mark will finish the recording of the meeting. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks very much.